Saturday morning a couple weeks ago. Didn't work out great. And we had to postpone last week's show altogether because Keith was recovering from a serious bout of COVID, and he's recovered mostly. Still get a cough now and again. The throat's a little scratchy. The voice is a little gravelly. But we'll find a way to get through it. And we appreciate all you guys being with us every week. Didn't get a chance to get any guests in this week, but hopefully next week we'll get Larry Sorensen in, maybe Jim Beringer in. We got to catch up on some stuff, but it's great to have everybody with us, and great to be back on a Wednesday night live here on Facebook, on YouTube, Twitter. DDH, thumbs up. Those of you who follow the show know what that's about. Again, you're watching us on TGI Sports Talk. Thank you. Northeast Streaming Sports. Let's Talk Sports. Also want to give a shout out to Ralph Williams over there on RW Media, who does some great stuff with some of his shows. And the one we want to plug for him is the Sports Corner. And you can see last night's episode on TGI Sports Talk page as well. Ralph does that show with Smoking Jim Frazier on WVP 12:30 a.m. and 99.3 FM in Pittsburgh. Check out Ralph's stuff, and he does some great stuff outside of the football world as well. And we'll have Ralph on one day to talk some NFL, most likely here soon. But it's good to be back and live with you guys. Lots to talk about this week. You know, big moves, big games last week. Oklahoma maybe taking themselves out of the race for the playoff spot with a bad loss to Kansas. Kansas is a good team, well coached by Jim Leopold, but not a good loss for them. Utah gets whacked by Oregon. Probably moves Oregon up a lot. Again, it did move them up a lot, and we'll get into the college football poll, the first one that came out last night as well, after we look at some of the games from last week. We'll also look at this week's games, and we'll talk about some of the stories that are out there. Any topics you want to get into, we will. And we certainly want to take a look at the Harbaugh situation. Again, I think you know how I feel about this ridiculous sign-stealing stuff that goes on in all the sports that everybody does, and it's selective prosecution. But Michigan has pulled a contract offer that was supposedly on the table for Jim Harbaugh because of this. So we can talk about that. We'll talk about Dabo Sweeney crumbling a little under the pressure at Clemson with things falling apart and maybe a 7-6 season in front of him. And some interesting things he had to say to a caller the other day. And we'll talk about more of the stuff around. I had a note here and I can't read it, but we'll get into all that and your topics as well. What do you got here? John DeLong, good to have you with us. We haven't seen you in a while. Of course, I've been sick for a couple of weeks, but it's good to have John with us, our SEC elitist. Keith tied to Connor Stallions and stealing scandal. I'm not sure what the Connor Stallions is, John. Fill me in on all these sign stealing scandals, the Astros, and this is coming from a Yankee fan, by the way, who have cried about losing to them in 2018. If you don't score runs, you don't win. And everybody's trying to steal signs all the time. Oh my God. What do you think these guys are doing at practices when they come in and they scout teams that, they send scouts to watch teams play. The NCAA is to blame for this themselves anyway. You can't use electronic communications in college. It's stupid. They're over there holding up signs. Come on, get with it. Get with it. And do we think Michigan's going to get punished this year? Who's going to punish them? It better be the Big Ten. The NCAA doesn't move that fast. And the Big Ten's not going to tell them they can't play for the conference championship and take them out of the playoff running because there's money involved. And the Big Ten wants the money just like every conference wants the money. So we'll get into some of that. Nice win by Georgia last week. By the way, it's talking about last week's games. I liked Florida to maybe win that game. By the way, we also can't call it the largest outdoor cocktail party anymore because I guess that offended somebody. I don't understand some of these things. Still, I don't understand some of these things. Anyway, you're getting into this, and then we'll get into the college football playoff rankings in a minute. Let's just look at some of the games from last week, and you guys have any comments on any of these games or anything else on your mind, bring them up, and let's do it. Georgia whips up on Florida pretty good. This game wasn't as close as the final score in my mind, 43-20. Beck played really good at quarterback. There was a lot of questions about how they play without Brock Bowers, and Georgia just had probably their best offensive game of the year. Now, Florida's not a great team. Don't get me wrong. But this is a good win for Georgia. They got a tough game coming up this week with Missouri coming in to play Georgia at Georgia. So we'll see how that goes. What do you got here, John? You do know that in-game sign stealing is legal. I do know that. But what Michigan did was, at the very least, violates the spirit of the rule. Again, I don't get worked up over sign stealing in any sport, John, because everybody's doing it. And, guys just aren't. It's selective, whatever. It's selective prosecution at best. And, they choose who to go after. They choose who to go after in the NFL. They choose who to go after in baseball. You don't think, since they've been giving signs, people have been trying to steal them. So I do know it's legal. And you can't use electronic devices to steal signs in college. But, guys, if you go and send a scout to a game, he's not going to notice the signs you put up. It's like freaking Pop Warner. Elsewhere last week, Ohio State beats up Wisconsin 24-10. Tough place to play in Madison. And surprisingly, we'll talk about it in a minute, Ohio State has the top spot in the first college football poll, which will be interesting to take a look at in a second as well. Where else? Florida State whoops up on a bad Wake Forest team. We're going to get I hope to have Larry Sorensen in this week, and I wasn't sure about my own health. So we'll try to get him in next week, talk about the ACC and some of the other things going on around the country. He is a Michigan grad. I'm sure he'll have some things to say there. What do you got here, John? There's also recruiting violations, which, by the way, were nonsense. It was a cover-up that was a big deal in the recruiting violations. Buying kids hamburgers and some of this nonsense is ridiculous. The FBI investigation into computer crimes, I'm not aware of, so I won't comment, but I will look into it. And it's only a matter of time before lack of institutional control charges are rendered. Maybe it's so. Maybe that's so. Again, if it goes past sign stealing, well, then I'll talk to you about it. If he's totally lost control, and we've seen it happen before, usually with much more serious charges than what have been brought here. But, we'll look into it. Washington last week just gets by Stanford. They needed a fourth quarter rally, really, to put them away. Kansas, we talked about beating Oklahoma. When we get into the college football playoff, we'll talk about teams that control their own destiny. Oklahoma, I believe, did. I do not believe that any longer. I think they will need some help to make the playoff now, even if they run the table and win the Big 12 championship game over a one-loss Texas team. I think it'll be tough for them to get to the playoff. Texas 35-6 over BYU. The offense even struggled a little bit in this game with Cam Ewers out. But Murphy, I'm trying to think of his first name now. But Murphy, the redshirted freshman, came in, played well enough for Texas. The defense was really good. They beat BYU at home 35-6. Oregon goes into Utah, tough place to play. Utah with a tough defense. not much offense, and it showed last week. 35-6. Oregon looking very good, beating a good Utah team, and Oregon did themselves very well in the first playoff ranking. Penn State struggles after losing to Ohio State. Struggles with Penn State or with Indiana. Boy, 33-24. Arizona, a good Arizona team, really good at home. Jed Fish, the ex-Patriot coach, has got Arizona playing some good football. Beats Oregon State 27-24. We'll get to your comment in a second, John. Let me get through the top 25 here. Ole Miss 33-7 over Vanderbilt. Notre Dame with some style points, beating up on Pittsburgh, a bad Pittsburgh team, 58-7. They're going to need some help to get to the playoff. 2-loss Notre Dame team. I don't think a 2-loss team gets in, but we'll see. Georgia Tech beats North Carolina. Every time North Carolina starts to make a push, they get to the top 10, they lose 2 straight now. And this is just typical North Carolina Tar Heel football. Louisville beats up on Duke 23-0. Air Force undefeated. They made the top 25 in the college football pool, which we'll look at in a bit. 30-13 over Colorado State. Tennessee loses to Kentucky, or beats Kentucky 33-27. Tulane 30-28 over Rice. Going to be an interesting race for that New Year's Day Bowl designation for the group of 5. Right now, you got Air Force, you got Tulane. You should have James Madison, by the way, who's a really good story this year, but stupid NCAA rules prohibit them from participating in postseason play for the first 2 years they're in FBS 1A, and this is their second year. UCLA beats Colorado 28-16. Some controversy over a hit from Sanders, Deion Sanders' son. I didn't think it was targeting myself. Targeting is too subjective. I like the rule in spirit, but I don't like the way it's enforced. USC 50-49 over California. They needed a fourth quarter comeback. They were down double digits here. And this is not a good USC team. They almost have fallen out of the top 25 almost. And James Madison, as I just mentioned, 30-27 winner. And they're still undefeated. And it's a shame they cannot participate. What do you got here, John? Don't act like Michigan is scum. I'm not acting like Michigan's a martyr. I'm telling you, sign stealing is nonsense. And this nonsense about everybody does it is pure nonsense. It's not nonsense. Everybody does it. Jan, I don't need an article. If you played sports, you know that people look to steal signs. I played baseball until I was 35 years old in some semi-pro leagues. We did it then. Everybody does it. Everybody. In the NFL, they do it. In college, they do it. In Major League Baseball, they do it. In minor league baseball, they do it. We're still here 80 years later, 70 years later, and Ralph Branca went to his grave swearing the Giants stole the signs when Bobby Thompson hit his home run. As long as they've been given signals, people have been trying to steal them. Articles. I mean, why do I need articles? I watch games. You pay attention to what's going on, you know, and again, or you get around people who are in the sport and you know that they're doing this because they talk about doing it. And I will continue to say it. You know? I said it when the Patriots got caught doing it. Everybody does it. They got caught. So, anyway. Some other games. Listen, we like to give the Army scores, the military school scores. Navy was off last week. Army with a bad loss to UMass. UMass, one of the worst teams in FBS 1A. They lose. Syracuse loses 38-10 from a local standpoint here. Some other games of note before we get into this first college football poll. excuse me, Northwestern beats Maryland at home. Northwestern has done a very good job this year. I thought this team would win 2 games tops. They're now 4-4, 2-3 in the Big Ten, with under some very trying circumstances. So nothing to be ashamed of there. Texas A&M beats South Carolina. Big game for Texas A&M. They get to 5-3. You know, Jimbo Fisher keeps being talked about being in a hot seat, but I do not see. I don't care about big oil money. I don't see them paying $77 million for him to go away. Mel Tucker's only gone from Michigan State because of the charges that were levied against him from sexual harassment. If you can't show cause to fire somebody, you're not giving them $77 million in parting gifts. Kansas State starting to play well again, 41-0 over Houston. I'm looking for some other. Clemson loses again, as we mentioned. Dabo Swinney, after the game, had some words, or I had a call-in show, I should say, on Sunday or Monday. Had some words with a caller. You know, just you can't be that short-tempered, Dabo, when things start to go wrong. You need to, and again, I don't like the transfer portal necessarily and the way it's used, but I will say, Dabo, you could turn this thing around in Clemson. Just get into the transfer portal like everybody else. That's the game you got to play today. Auburn beats Mississippi State 27-13. Minnesota with a win over Michigan State. Nebraska 3-2 in the Big Ten. Playing some good football under Matt Rule. Haven't beat a lot of good teams or any good teams, but 5-3 overall, 3-2 in the Big Ten. Matt Rule may be starting to make his mark there. They're not all the way back, that's for sure. Miami gets to 6-2, struggled mightily with not a good Virginia team. They win in overtime, 29-26. I'll get to your comment there in a second, John. Let's see if there's anything else I really want to touch on here. Scores from last week. Washington State loses again to Arizona State. Not a good football team. Washington State falls to 4-4, 1-4 in the Pac-12. Did not look like that would happen early in the year. And Fresno State rebounds from their first loss to beat UNLV, 31-24. What do you got for me, John? Everyone steals signs. That's legal. But Michigan was recording signs for future opponents at games Michigan was not playing in. I'm going to tell you, if you don't think that's happening elsewhere, you're wrong. You're wrong. Every team sending scouts out to scout future opponents. No matter what sport we're talking about, whether it's college or whether it's professional. They're sending scouts out to these games. What do you think they're there for? To figure out stuff like what's coming when. Just saying. Oh, it's not just $77 million for the Aggies. I heard earlier today that might cost as much as $125 million to buy out. Well, that's true. We got the staff to talk about. It's a good point, John. And that's not happening. I mean, on this show and on the Sunday Stream of Consciousness, which catch at 8:30 on Sundays, 8:30 to 10:30. Everybody's, like, oh, that's nothing. The oil men will come up with that money for nothing. But that's not true. They're not going to just, give money away. They didn't get rich by giving away $77 million or $125 million, as John says. Very good point. I mean, they probably have the highest paid offensive coordinator in football. I don't know. I don't have proof, John. I just have, common sense. Common sense. Think about it long enough. It comes to you. Oh, geez. If they're doing it, they're the only ones, right? 133 division of FBS 1A schools. And Michigan's the only one out there with scouts that are recording signals. Look at in college football, the NCAA's got themselves to blame. You make it so easy to steal signals anyway. Why don't they go to the electronic headsets? It's ridiculous not to be there today. Ridiculous. So anyway, Yeah. I get your point, John. Listen, I'm not going to belabor the point. I believe what I believe, and you believe what you believe. We're not going to get anywhere because you don't have any proof that they aren't doing it either, by the way. Just saying. If things escalate and there's an FBI investigation into computer crimes, well, then things escalate and maybe Jim Harbaugh's out of a job, which he'll probably get an NFL job in his heartbeat because they aren't going to care. Well, first of all, I'm accusing people. I'm not going to court to accuse people. I know it happens. I've been around it enough. I know it happens. Historically, it's happened everywhere on every level. It happens in high school, for God's sakes. So just, again, we're making too big a deal of this. Do a better job of not getting your signs stolen. And the NCAA, get your head out of this and let these guys put freaking microphones in the headsets. Can't prove a negative. That's a fundamental logic. True, you got me there. You got me there. I said I use common sense. I didn't say I use logic. But it is what it is. Let's take a look quickly, or not quickly, at we'll go around the league in a little bit, but I want to take a look at the first. Last night was the first playoff rankings to come out. And a little surprise, John, weigh in with your SEC bias. Is there a bias against the SEC this year? Georgia, all they've done is win 2 consecutive national championships, go 8-0 this year. Haven't necessarily looked dominant. And they are my pick to win it again. But it's a little, and I don't know that 1 and 2 really matters, especially right now. Because this will probably straighten itself out before we're done. But Ohio State slides into that top spot, and Georgia comes in the second spot. Michigan 3rd, Florida State 4. Not surprised at the top 5. There was some thought that Oregon, I know the ESPN guys last night before this was announced, had a couple of them, Des Howard and somebody else, I can't remember who else, had Oregon in the top 4. I can't move Oregon over Washington. Now, Washington's got a big game against USC on the road this week, and I know USC's played no defense, has not looked very good at all since they got beat up badly by Notre Dame, barely got by Cal. But still, not an easy place to go play for Washington. But I'm not putting an Oregon team that lost to Washington above them. Texas is at 7. Alabama lurking at 8. Alabama's very quietly has kind of turned their season around since they lost to Texas and struggled with South Florida. They put Milroe back in at quarterback, and you've got kind of I think a good Alabama team. I would say they also control their own destiny. We'll talk about that in a second. Oklahoma, team I like, falls to 9. Ole Miss at 10. Penn State, 11. Missouri at 12. You got Louisville, LSU, Notre Dame, Oregon State, Tennessee, Utah, UCLA, USC at 20. Kansas at 21. Oklahoma State, who's come back very nicely under Mike Gundy, to get to 6-2 at 22. Kansas State coming back to be 6-2. Tulane and Air Force round out the top 25. Now, I think there are teams here that control their own destiny. Obviously, Ohio State obviously does, as does Michigan in the Big Ten. Georgia controls their own destiny. Florida State controls their own destiny. I'm not so sure about Washington anymore or Oregon, because if there's can there be 4 undefeated teams? There could be. Washington probably controls its own destiny because somebody's got to lose that Ohio State Michigan game. So Washington, I would say, controls their own destiny. Oregon does not because of the loss to Washington. Texas and Oklahoma, I think they might need help. I don't think they control their own destiny. Alabama, on the other hand, controls its own destiny. Win the SEC, they're in. Oklahoma, again, I said, doesn't. Ole Miss, we're only going to look at the top 12 here. Ole Miss, I would say they control their own destiny, but I'm not sure. No, they would need help because they lost to Alabama. They may not be able to get to the SEC championship game. Penn State, can't say they control their own destiny. Missouri controls their own destiny. Big game at Georgia this week. I think you got to watch out for a surprise in Georgia this week in Athens. No, the SEC is not getting job, but wait for it. Georgia will likely win a third straight. I did pick them early before the season. I had Georgia winning it all, Florida State, Ohio State, and Oklahoma in the Final Four. Not going to happen now. I don't think Oklahoma really has much of a prayer. Win out, beat Texas. You're still going to have to hope that, somebody loses in front of you. Maybe too many teams lose in front of you. I think it's going to be an interesting game. I'm interested in I think Missouri's got a chance this week in Georgia. And Missouri, they got some tough games. They still got to play Tennessee. They might have Ole Miss yet too. But man, Missouri's got a tough road. But if they run that road and won the SEC, they would be in the playoff in my mind. And that's the last team. So I think you got a handful of teams that control their own destiny. Georgia will likely win third straight. I think so too. Ohio State is the only team that can stop the Dogs. So you don't give Missouri a fighting chance this weekend, John. You don't give Alabama a chance if they were to face them in the SEC championship game. Let me ask you this too, John, while we're talking about the SEC. If Alabama has 2 losses or LSU were to go to the SEC championship game and beat an undefeated Georgia team, does Georgia get in off that loss? If Ohio State, Florida State, Washington are all undefeated, will that Georgia team get in over a 1-loss Michigan or a 1-loss Ohio State? A 1-loss Oregon team? Well, I guess that can't be. Oregon and Washington can't finish one undefeated and one with 1 loss. Can't happen. Because right now they're on a collision course for a repeat. So, a few weeks ago, I thought there was a chance the SEC would not get a team in, an outside chance. Now I don't know that that's so likely. Good evening, Augustin. How are you? Go Oregon. Oregon's playing some great football despite that loss to Washington. We know you're a big Ducks fan. Can they make the playoff? Yes, I do not think they will. I don't think there's any way. And again, the whole Washington, Oregon in some polls or some people's minds are ranked above Washington despite the loss to Washington. I don't think it really matters because I think this is going to play out probably where they play each other in the big Pac-12 championship game. And whoever wins that will probably get in the playoff, assuming we got an undefeated Washington and a 1-loss Oregon in that championship game. Georgia's going to curb stomp Mizzou. Very similar to how they stomped Kentucky. Well, I don't know if that's a great comparison, though, because I think Missouri's got a much better offense than Kentucky. But their defense is very suspect. This game could be a real shootout. I'll be looking at the over very closely in this game. And I don't really want to root against Georgia. I picked them to win, their third straight. And I I don't really want to pick against them. Speaking of Georgia, there's our resident Georgia fan, Rick Sherlock. Good evening, Rick. Did you see the clip of the Michigan person on the sidelines? You must be sensitive to this as a Patriots fan who got tagged from this. You know, again, I don't get worked up, and I'm not. John is probably going to agree with you, Rick. I mean, I don't get worked up over this stuff. I just don't. There's a lot of this stuff going on. John wants me to prove it with facts and, you know, articles. I can't. I just, again, use my God-given common sense, which doesn't always ring true. But it's hard for me to believe that Michigan's the only ones out there doing this. Any more than the Patriots were the only ones out there doing this. John's calling it right now. Georgia will not lose a game. Will not possibly lose a game until the playoffs. And losing in the playoffs for the Dogs is only a maybe. To me, they still a favorite. I mean, again, I'm not going to get worked up over their one or Ohio State's one. I personally would have ranked Georgia 1. But that's just me. Bama needs another year before they're ready for Georgia. I think, listen, we talked about this a lot this year about teams that are, you know, good teams get better during the course of the year. Georgia's gotten better. Rick has talked about this a lot. I think Alabama's gotten better. I think Michigan's gotten better. I think Ohio State's gotten better. And Florida State got off to a great start with that win over LSU. They got a big win against Clemson, which doesn't look as big anymore. But Washington's not getting better. I love Washington, but they've had too many close calls. They're not getting better as the season goes on. Oregon maybe is. Texas, not sure. Alabama's getting better. Oklahoma might have been a mirage. Ole Miss seems to be getting better, but, you know, Lane Kiffin can't beat Alabama. That's his problem. And it might bite him in the ass this year. I mean, he could be a one-loss team without a chance getting in the playoff. Maybe you don't get worked up over illegal sign stealing because Yankees condone all forms of cheating. I don't think you should lump all Northerns in with my with my thinking, because believe me, there are a lot of people who don't think that the way I do. There's a lot of people who think the Astros should have been banned from baseball because they stole signs against the Yankees and the Dodgers and blah, 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 blah. Play better, you win. They're stealing your signs, change your signs. Or go steal their signs. Come on. Excuse makers. Jim Harbaugh is a polarizing figure. And there are certain people who would like to see Jim Harbaugh fail. Hence, again, the recruiting violations that were nonsense, I think, very, very minor offenses from what I know. Now, maybe you know more than I do, John, but the violations I saw did not warrant a suspension. It was a cover-up that got him. He lied. If he didn't lie, he wouldn't have got suspended, most likely. So, again, I don't think the NCAA wants Jim Harbaugh to succeed. I'm sure the Big Ten does because they want the moolah. Ole Miss won't finish higher than 5th in the final playoff poll. They can't. I mean, I don't. Can they even get into the SEC championship game, Jeff? They got to get by Georgia. Georgia's not going to lose unless they lose to Missouri this week. They're not going to lose. Oh, I say they've got to get by Alabama. That's my bad. They got lost to Alabama. There's no way, unless Alabama falls on its face and loses 2 games in the league, that they can get into the championship game. So you're right. They got no path to the Final Four. None. And Georgia's path is probably set, assuming they don't lose to Missouri this week. Taking some pictures and stealing signs is one thing. This guy was on the sidelines and team garb. Oh, wow. Again, I'm not getting worked up over this stuff. I'm just not. Again, to me, it's naive to think if this team's doing it, nobody else is. And if you know if you know guys have been at your games, why wouldn't you change up your signals? Number one, I would assume from one game to the next, they know my signals. It's just stupidity not to. And by the way, as I said before, the NCAA, it's stupid that they're up there putting up pictures of giraffes and not able to talk to their quarterback. Anyway. What do we think, guys? Are we upset? Is there anything in the college football poll that upsets you? I think it's a pretty good ranking for the first shot here. I don't think any team past 12 has a shot to leapfrog in there. I just can't see anybody as I go down past 12 and even above 12, because as John said, Ole Miss really got no shot. I don't think Penn State's got any shot. I mean, if they were to go beat Michigan and Michigan beats Ohio State, I guess maybe. I don't know what the tiebreakers are. No, I would think, yeah. I guess there would still be, Penn State would still be in play. I don't know what the tiebreakers would be. But again, you need help. Oklahoma needs help. Bama doesn't. Bama can control, again, they may not be ready for Georgia, John, but they do control their own destiny. Giraffes. It's just the first stupid animal that came to my mind. I didn't know you were such a giraffe activist. Save the giraffes. Oh, my God, right? Let's go around the leagues a little bit, the conferences, and see what's going on. We'll start the SEC just because we were there already. Where was I? So Georgia's leading the East 5-0. Missouri's 3-1. As I said, they got a gauntlet ahead of them. John gives them no chance to beat Georgia this weekend. I give them a puncher's chance. They had a tough loss against the toughest opponent on their schedule so far, LSU. Scored a bunch of points, but they gave up a bunch of points, and they were way ahead in this game. Florida falls to 3-2, a bad loss to Georgia. I thought this team had rebounded a little bit. And by the way, why can't I call it the world's largest outdoor cocktail party anymore? Why are we not allowed to say that? Get on that, John. Let's save that name rather than the giraffes. Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina is a big disappointment. In the West, Alabama's 5-0. Right now, Alabama and Georgia are on a collision course for the SEC championship game. Ole Miss can't get there unless Alabama loses twice. LSU still got a shot. They play Alabama this weekend. Alabama beats or loses to LSU, then LSU's in the driver's seat, right? Texas A&M, at least Jimbo's got them 3-2 in the league. And Auburn, first year under Hugh Freeze, 1-4. Mississippi, not very good. And Vanderbilt, of course, not very good. The AAC, the American Football Conference, Tulane back in the top 25. One loss, a tough loss to Ole Miss without their starting quarterback. Tulane looking at a New Year's Day bowl game. If they can keep things moving forward, they're going to have to battle Air Force for that spot. I think Air Force might go undefeated because it makes Southerners sound like degenerate trucks. Personally, I don't care. I mean, it's a harmless nickname for a game. So the Southerners are offended. Oh, my God. I knew somebody had to be offended. I do hate giraffes. It's true. I can't hide it anymore. Their long necks, their stupid-looking mouths, and their little ears. Anyway, Tulane is on a 6-game winning streak, but SMU's playing well, 4-0 in the conference. UTSA, first year in the conference, has struggled out of the conference, but is 4-0 in the conference. Memphis has played some good football, 3-1. Florida Atlantic, 3-1. It's a pretty good football. This is an underrated football league. They lost their 3 best teams, remember, or 3 of their best teams. You can say their 3 best teams because that's an affront to Tulane. But this conference is up for grabs, and I said UTSA would have a shot at this crown, and they still do. They still have to play Tulane. The ACC is a mess other than Florida State and Louisville. But Louisville's really hurt themselves with a loss to Pittsburgh, a bad Pittsburgh team. Louisville would still be in a playoff hunt if they'd won that game. Florida State, they're going to make the conference championship. Just a matter of whether it's going to be Louisville. Virginia Tech has rebounded after a horrendous start, 3-1 in the conference. Georgia Tech's 3-2. North Carolina, as I said, pulled a classic North Carolina football move, moving into the top 10. Really a lot of momentum, and they've lost 2 in a row now to who did I know they lost to crap. I know they lost to Georgia Tech last week, and the week before they lost to somebody else who I can't find. There we go. Virginia. Not great football teams, guys. Sorry, my internet's acting up here. Trying to get back to my standings here. There we go. So, Miami with 2 losses in the conference. It's probably going to be Florida State and either Virginia Tech or Louisville. That doesn't help Florida State's chances either. They go undefeated, and they have to play an inferior team in the ACC championship game. It could hurt them. It could hurt them. They can't afford a loss. I think it's mostly university administrators that have a problem with it. There's a shock. As far as I know, the fans like the name. They should. And is it a shock the university administrators don't like it? Talk about communist. John, I know your leanings. You can't be happy, with the indoctrination our kids are getting on college campuses these days. The last 4 decades. Louisville wore themselves out beating Notre Dame or partying after beating Notre Dame, possibly. That was a good story, too. Jeff Brom coming home to his alma mater. And that was just a bad football game they played against Pittsburgh. It's a bad Pittsburgh team, too. And you're just not going to get over a loss like that. By the way, in the ACC, on a more local level here, Syracuse 0-4. They're now 4-4 after being 4-0. Dino Babers is going to have a hard time keeping his job. He really is. Sorry, guys. My voice is starting to waver a little. Where do you want to move to? The Big 12. We thought it was going to be Oklahoma and Texas would be a shoo-in a few weeks ago for the Big 12 championship game, but Iowa State's quietly got to 4-1 in the conference. Oklahoma State, after a bad start, Mike Gundy's got his team 4-1 in the conference, 6-2 overall. Kansas State, after stumbling a bit, they've lost 2 good football teams. They're 4-1. And Kansas lurking back there at 3-2. So it's not a shoo-in that either that either Oklahoma or Texas gets to that championship game. University administrators are definitely giraffe-eating comments. Listen, I don't hate giraffes just for the sake of hating them. Had a horrible story about a giraffe when I was a kid. And the Big Ten in the East, you got, of course, Michigan and Ohio State 5-0. Who knows how this whole thing will play out for Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. Maybe the Big Ten takes some action. I don't know. But right now, the Big Ten's got a chance to have two teams in the playoff. And I know Big Ten likes money. And those administrators like money, John. So my bet is nothing happens during the season. And there'll be some kind of penalties after the season. Now, Harbaugh did rumors have it that he had a contract offer on the table from Michigan, an extension, which has been pulled because of this. So, Jim may be taking away out to the NFL before long. Penn State sits back there at 4-1. They can't beat Ohio State or Michigan, so they sit there in third every year. Rutgers quietly 3-2 in the conference, 6-2 overall. Greg Schiano doing a great job there. Maryland is underperforming. I think a lot more was expected of them. They're 2-3 in the conference. And Indiana and Michigan State are just awful. Tom Allen's probably going to lose his job at Indiana. In the West, it's a mess. Minnesota and Iowa both 3-2. Wisconsin 3-2. Nebraska 3-2. Any one of those teams could go to the conference championship game and get pasted for sure. Big news out of Iowa this week is it was announced that Brian Ferentz would not be returning next year as the offensive coordinator. Hard to believe. I mean, they'd already put in a stipulation that you need to average 25 points a game and win 7 games. The team's averaging about 19 points a game with an offense that looks like it came out of 1949. Kirk Ferentz, by the way, is not part of that decision, as Brian did not report directly to him. He reported to one of the guys in the AD's office, I believe, because of nepotism laws in Iowa. But does anybody think that whoever wins the West has got any shot in the championship game of the Big Ten? I do not. Raiders need a coach and a QB. Jimmy Kaepernick are available. Well, let's not get into Kaepernick. He's not going to play in the NFL ever again because he can't play. End of story. And Jim Harbaugh, I think, dallied with the Raiders once before. Listen, I have no doubt that if Harbaugh goes to the Raiders may suddenly start to look better. Because you can say whatever you want about Harbaugh. You can call him a cheater. You can call him too smart for his own good. You can call him swarmy, whatever you want to call him. He wins. He wins. He's not bringing Kaepernick back to the NFL, though. Don't get that idea. He won at San Diego in college, where nobody wins. He brought a Stanford team that had been down back to almost playoff caliber level. He goes to San Francisco, who is awful when he gets there, and takes them to a Super Bowl and to a couple of NFC championship games. And he goes to Michigan, and he's been in the playoffs 2 years in a row. After a bit of a slow start. But remember, Michigan was a mess before he gets there. NFL Network reported earlier this week that the NFL might not be a safe haven for Jim, and they might honor any infractions. I read the same thing, but I also saw another article that kind of said, the NFL is not going to care whatever happens. And I think, I don't know. I mean, my guess is you'd end up a lawsuit if they were to hold up sanctions given by another league. That'd be kind of unprecedented, I would say. Right? I mean, think about Pete Carroll running out of USC. I love Pete Carroll, but obviously he left a mess behind at USC and didn't get any infractions because he wasn't there, or he didn't suffer any consequences. So the NFL, they certainly knew what was coming, and it didn't hold them up from hiring him. And I'm sure there's other instances we can think of. Arrogant was the word I was looking for. But, again, he's a good football coach. Whether you like the guy or not, he's a good football coach. I got into it with Mac on the show previous on Northeast Streaming Sports about Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells is a great football coach. Horrible human being. Horrible. But would I want him running my football team? I don't know. I think you can be both. I think you can be a bad guy, and maybe Harbaugh is. I don't know. I kind of like Jim Harbaugh. Conference USA, Liberty, in their first year, not being an independent, moving into the Conference USA, they're leading that league at 6-0. They're undefeated at 8-0 overall. And a good story with Jamie Chadwell going there from Coastal Carolina and continuing the success that Hugh Freeze had there. They're in pretty good shape with Jacksonville and New Mexico State right behind them. What do you got, John? I don't find it odd that Michigan's sign stealing scandal began in 2021, the first year Michigan made the playoff. First of all, we don't know that's when it began. It's when the allegations say it began. My guess is it was going on before that. Based on all I've said to you before, John, I have no doubt that it was going on before 2021. Maybe they just got better at it. That's the thing. When you're cheating, that sounds stupid. The better you are at it, the more they're going to want to take you down. I know this. The independents, you got Notre Dame. UMass beats Army last week. Army, that's a bad loss. Army, this is one of the worst seasons they've had under Jeff Monken, and hopefully he can turn this around. I would hope his job is not in jeopardy because he's done a great job at Army. But that's a bad loss to a bad UMass team. And UConn, 1-7. Great story last year. Jim Mora taking them to a bowl game. But this year's a different story. The Mid-American, Miami of Ohio at 4-1, Buffalo at 3-2, and Ohio at 3-2, kind of in the lead in the East. And then Toledo's kind of run away with the West. They're 5-0. Central Michigan sitting back at 3-2. Mountain West, they keep saying underrated conference. Air Force with a very good chance to go undefeated. They still got to play Fresno State and UNLV, I think both. But Air Force with a good chance to be undefeated and a good chance at a New Year's Day bowl game. Calhoun, one of the best coaches in the country that nobody talks about. They're doing a great job. Fresno State at 3-1, sitting back there. Same with UNLV. Boise State's rebounded from a bad start. They're only 4-4 overall. They're 3-1 in the conference. And then Wyoming's kind of petered out after a good start. They're 2-2 in the conference, 5-3 overall. Listen, not a bad football conference. I think these top teams here and the top teams maybe in the ACC or AAC should consider aligning with Oregon State and Washington. Maybe try to keep the Pac-12 alive. The brand is worth something. I think it's more valuable to try to rebuild the Pac-12 because you've got the brand, you've got some money available, than for Oregon State, Washington State to go to, say, the Mountain West. I think if you keep the Pac-12 name alive, you got a better chance at a better TV contract. And the Mountain West has got some good teams. The Pac-12 in their last year of existence, as we know, Washington 5-1 or 5-0, USC, as bad as they played, still only 5-1 in the conference. Big game with Washington and USC this week in Los Angeles. Oregon sitting back there at 4-1 in third place, probably the second best team in this conference. Oregon State has fallen off a bit, 3-2 now in the conference. Utah 3-2. This is going to be a battle, I think. I think the stars are aligned. I don't think there's any way Washington loses to USC. And I do think Washington and Oregon will have a rematch. And Dan Lanning will have a chance to atone for what a lot of people think were some bad calls on fourth down. I happen to think the last one, now I'm not even going to comment on the other two because the one at the half was stupid. He should have kicked the field goal. But at the end of the game, I have no problem with him playing to win the game. We already talked about the SEC, the Sun Belt. James Madison, what a stupid rule the NCAA has that they have to sit 2 years before they can participate in postseason. They're 8-0, one of the best stories in college football. They've got a game and a half lead over Georgia Southern. They're likely going to face Trojans probably in the conference championship game. I'm not even sure they can participate in that, to be honest with you. So it would be Georgia Southern or Georgia State most likely getting to play Troy, which it's an egregious rule in my mind. Egregious. So that's to look around the conferences. Let's look at the games this weekend. As I said, we got some really good matchups coming here in week 11. Is that right? Scroll up here. No, week 10. Hard to believe, though, man. Week 10, we're already. We got a couple of games being played early this week. Ball State and Bowling Green are tied at 7. Kent State and Akron, 6-0 Kent State first quarter. Yesterday we had a couple of games as well. Central Michigan beats Northern Illinois 37-31, and Toledo beats Buffalo 31-13. Games all over the place this week. Thursday night, you got TCU and Texas Tech, Wake Forest and Duke. Not a lot to look at here. South Alabama and Troy. What do you got, John? Does Riley fire Greenwich? Yes. I think there's no way that Lincoln Riley can keep Alex Grinch another season. I mean, already, some of the fans out there are up in arms over some of the recruiting that they're doing, that there isn't enough emphasis being put on the defensive side of football going forward. And I don't know how he can stand by Grinch after this. To me, this year has been worse than last year from a defensive standpoint for USC. They brought in some good transfer players, and the team, I think, arguably has played worse defensively than it did last year. Or does he feel the need to prove to everyone he's not a championship coach by retaining Grinch? Well, loyalty to your friends is one thing. There was already a bit of an uproar when they brought him with them from Oklahoma. I don't think Lincoln Riley is going to gamble his future at USC by keeping Alex Grinch. That's just my own. Did I see that? I did see that the Colorado players and coaches were robbed of cash and bling. Did that also happen to Deion at Jackson State? I don't know. I don't know if it did or didn't. I know that Deion thinks that the Pac-12 should pay to replace these items. It's a Pac-12 or UCLA in general. Yeah, I can't find the article now. Again, you know what? I'm not saying it's okay, but let's not. Why would you bring bling? Why do you got to bring your bling into the locker room and risk it getting stolen? I don't know if Riley's going to fire Grant. You think they'll keep him? USC has a female athletic director, just saying. I'm not sure Not sure where you're going there, John. You can elaborate if you like. I don't think a female athletic director is going to have any bearing on whether Lincoln Riley keeps Alex Grinch or not. Don't know. Anyway, let's get into the bigger games. Ohio State, number 1 in the poll. It's Rutgers at Rutgers. Rutgers has played decent football this year. Not decent enough to beat out Ohio State. Ohio State's an 18.5-point favorite on the road here. Not sure I'd lay the points, but like Ohio State. Texas and Kansas State in a big game in the Big 12. Kansas State playing much better. This game's at Texas. Going to give Texas the edge here. Texas A&M goes to Ole Miss. Ole Miss a 3-point favorite. You know, this is the type of game that Lane Kiffin loses a lot. And I'm not sure. I'm going to take Ole Miss. I don't know if I'm going to put any money in this game. I may bet the over for just 53.5. We'll see. Notre Dame goes to Clemson. Dabo Swinney, as we said, getting his first taste of criticism at Clemson. Had some words for a caller to his coach's show the other day. Got really short with the guy and said, "You come and coach. Think it's so easy." Because the guy said, "Do you think it's fair you're making all this money and all we get out of it is a 4-4 team?" I don't know why coaches do these shows anyway. They get paid enough money to coach. I don't think they need the money for a coach's show. But you just put yourself in harm's way. I like what Nick Saban does with his coach's show, though. He had some fun with it. Some really good clips out there of Nick getting into it with some of his regular callers. Anyway, I think Notre Dame wins this game. Normally, given 3 to Clemson at home, I would not say is a good idea, but Notre Dame's playing some good football right now, and Clemson just isn't. They're looking at possibly a 7-6 finish. UConn goes to Tennessee. That will be a bloodbath. Arkansas at Florida. See if Florida can rebound from that bad loss to Georgia last week. Wisconsin goes to Indiana. 8.5 laying on the road, man. Wisconsin has not played great football this year. I'm not so sure I'd lay that 8.5 on the road here. I do think Wisconsin will win the game. Nebraska in play to win the West in the Big Ten has got a game at Michigan State. They should win this game, I think, fairly easily. Michigan State is just a mess. Jacksonville State goes to South Carolina. I don't know how that got into my rankings here. Can't be all the ranked teams. Oh, I got this on a full slate. That's why. Let me get to the rest of the top 25 and then we'll look around. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. Still trying to keep abreast here. So talk about that. We got Arizona State going to Utah. Utah will probably rebound in a big way here. Arizona State not very good despite beating Washington State last week. They're just 2-6, 1-4 in the Pac-12. I would like to see Utah bounce back in a big way here. Army and Air Force, big spread here for a military game, a military academy game. I love Air Force here, and Army might get beat by much more than the spread, which is 18.5. Question I would like is whether I want to take the over, which is 31.5. Georgia and Missouri. Georgia's a 15.5-point favorite. I think Missouri can keep this game close. I know John thinks that they're going to roll them. I may stay away from the game, and I might bet the over 54.5 in this game. Florida State will play Pittsburgh. Bad Pittsburgh team. Florida State's going to lay 3 touchdowns in this one. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, the last bedlam for quite some time, most likely. Oklahoma State's 3.5. Oklahoma is 3.5 on the road. I'm probably going to take, as much as I like to see Oklahoma rebound and still give me a shot to get them in a playoff, which is going to take some doing. I think I'm taking Oklahoma State in the points here. Penn State will go to Maryland. Penn State should win this game as they get ready to play Michigan. Virginia Tech and Louisville. Louisville's going to win this for fun, I think. Virginia Tech's played much better football of late, but I don't think Louisville will have much trouble here. East Carolina and Tulane. I like Tulane in this game. Lane 17, a little rough on the road, but East Carolina not very good. And Tulane's playing some really good football right now. Oregon plays Cal. I think Oregon will blow Cal out of the water after Cal had their season last week. They had a chance to beat USC and did not do it. Kansas said Iowa State. I don't know. This is a tough game. Iowa State's a 2.5-point favorite. I might take Iowa State in this game. Kansas with a bit of a letdown maybe after beating Oklahoma last week. Purdue will go to Michigan. That should be an easy win for Michigan, although 32.5 is a lot to lay. USC and Washington. Washington's a 3-point favorite on the road. Another game I would love to bet the over, but the over is 76. Wow. LSU and Alabama might be the game of the day. LSU put themselves in the driver's seat for a playoff if they can go to Alabama and upset the Crimson Tide. We'll see what happens there. Oregon State plays Colorado. Oregon State with a tough loss last week to Arizona. Colorado at home. This is going to be an interesting game. Maybe an over bet at 62. I think Oregon State will go in there and win. Whether they'll cover the 13.5 is a different story. John, I'll get to your comment in just 1 second. UCLA will go to Arizona. I may take the points here at home as well. UCLA laying 3 at a very game. Weird game, Arizona. John's got a couple more comments here. In fairness to Grinch, it's not just his fault. The strength and conditioning coach needs to go too. It's noteworthy that both Grinch and the strength and conditioning, it is noteworthy that we followed him. And he did get some heat originally from some USC people for bringing Alex Grinch with him because the defense was not that good at Oklahoma. Which is why, if I think he gets pushed, I think he's going to have to part ways with Greenwich and probably the strength and conditioning coach as well. Oklahoma's run defense is awful. That's why I like Oklahoma State in this last bedlam for a while. And it's a shame we're not going to get this rivalry for God knows how long because of realignment, but I'm just not going to go down that road again. LSU can't make the playoffs. No, I said they could make the. Yeah, I didn't say they could make the playoff, John. I said they could make the SEC championship. I misspoke. I apologize. If they beat Alabama, well, let's look at the standings again. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's go back and look at this SEC. If I looked at it right, no, you're right. If Ole Miss wins and LSU wins, actually, Ole Miss can still win this division. So if I'm Ole Miss, I'm rooting for LSU this week because I got the tiebreaker. And if they make Ole Miss does have a path to the playoff, John, that I didn't see before. LSU does not. They got 2 losses. And one to Ole Miss. But if Ole Miss were to make the playoff and beat Georgia, they would have a path. Oh, John, good to see you with us, John Gonzalez. But John's reporting that this is very sad news. If it's true, let's take a quick. I have no reason to doubt John. But he says Bobby Knight has passed away. Just celebrated a birthday here the other day. Very sad news for sure. Waiting, my computer is like slower than molasses here tonight. And we're not getting, here we go. Bobby Knight passes away at 83 years old. I know he'd been sick for a while, so that's unfortunate. You know, love Bobby Knight or hate Bobby Knight. You know, you talk about polarizing figures. We've talked about, Jim Harbaugh a lot, and we've talked about, guys like Saban and Dabo Swinney, and Bob Knight was certainly a polarizing figure. People loved him or people hated him. But he was a really good basketball coach for sure. You can't deny that. And you can argue with some of his tactics, but I think his legacy. I think his legacy will be one of a great coach and a flawed man, and it's really sad to see that. Thanks for getting us that news, John, and good to have you with us tonight. Very sad news for sure. It's a little bit of a bummer to go out on that note tonight, but is what it is, I guess. Let's see what other games. Are there any other games that are really of interest? I had them going before. Already talked about that game. Florida Atlantic and UAB. Florida Atlantic trying to stay alive in that Conference USA, UTSA, and North Texas. Talked about Missouri. I give Missouri a puncher's chance this weekend. Illinois, Minnesota, big game in the for the East in Minnesota, or the West, I should say, the Big Ten. Iowa, as we said, parting ways after the season with Brian Ferentz. Will play Northwestern. Northwestern's done a really good job. That coaching staff has done a remarkable job, I think, keeping that team afloat. 4-4 and 2-3 in the Big Ten. UCF and Cincinnati and two new teams in the Big 12 who are still looking for their first conference win. One of them will get it this weekend. James Madison, who we've talked about getting screwed right and left by NCAA rules, will play Georgia State, which should be a good battle. Auburn and Vanderbilt, no cares. Talked about that game. I don't really have any other games that I really care about. What do you got? Ole Miss can't possibly beat Georgia. Ole Miss can't hang with Georgia on the lines. You trafficking guy. I was just saying if. I'm not saying it when. Who doesn't love a coach who strangles his players? Sometimes you got to shake a player. I agree. Sometimes you got to shake a player. You really can't be choking them out. Bob Knight, it kind of became a caricature of himself a little bit, but there's no denying the influence he had on the game of basketball. And the influence he had, there's a lot of guys, all that went down at Indiana. There are a lot of guys who've come back there, and I've had nothing but great things to say about Bob Knight and the influence he had on their lives. So, his tactics weren't always good. And when he ended up under the spotlight, it got worse. But, again, he was a giant figure in the world of college basketball for decades. And, we're sad to see him go. At least I am. So, guys, I'm losing my voice, so if you don't have anything else, I'm going to wrap it up a little bit early. Some great games this weekend. Going to have playoff implications. As we said, Alabama, LSU, Washington, USC, Oregon. Who else is playing this weekend? We talked about lots of games to keep an eye on, and lots of fun ahead. And we'll be back here next week to continue our debate on stealing signal and whatever else. I want to thank everybody else. DDH, thumbs up. Thanks to all the watchers on Northeast Streaming Sports and Let's Talk Sports and Talk, obviously, TGI Sports Talk. Guys, I'll be back on Sunday with a Sunday Streamer Consciousness. Friday, we'll be doing the Are You Serious show, and we'll be back here next Wednesday, hopefully with our voice back in tune. John, good to have you with us. I love going back and forth with you, buddy. And I promise you I don't hate your ass as much as I hate communists. So have a great weekend, guys. We thank you for TGI Sports Talks, college football huddle. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Sometimes he's just happy to celebrate. I know one thing. It's always special on trick or treat. I always eat a lot of candy.
Rick, we just talked about the unfortunate with losing Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
To the injury. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that. But we think Minnesota will still be okay if they're starting a undrafted free agent quarterback this week, but and most likely it'll be Josh Dobbs for the majority of the season. So we'll see what happens. They're gonna have to play good in other positions.
Well, Josh Dobbs been doing really good with the Cardinals. I mean, he have set them up for, to play some exciting offense, and they scored a lot. They scored a lot. So
yeah, so
it's definitely not the quarterback situation with the Cardinals. Just that they need some defense help and some special team help.
Yeah, but it's interesting. The quarterback that's starting for the Cardinals is named Clayton Tune. Clayton Toombs is from Salina, Texas, but he didn't play in Salina. He played at Hebron High School, and he started for the University of Houston. I think he was a guy that went 5 years.
Yeah.
But Clayton Toombs is going to be – he's a big joker, though. He's like 6'3", 220.
And what's good about playing in Salina and over there in Frisco and North Dallas area, those guys really have good football skills. They play football year-round.
Yeah.
7-on-7 and all that type of stuff.
And Rick is right. They had a thing. Before he had his surgery, he went out there and made sure that he was with the kids, meeting his obligations. So
who that? Kirk Cousins.
Cousins, yes.
Yeah, man. I never I told you this. You always talk about Kirk Cousins, but me and him was sitting at the same table several years ago at the NFL Players Association. He was one of the union reps.
Yeah, it wasn't at night, was it? It was in the day, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, we meet it during the daytime. But my point is, very, very good guy. That's why I don't say nothing bad about Kirk Cousins because I met him up close. So
Jason texted me and asked me what I thought, and I told him that the Vikings were going to win the game. Kirk Cousins was due. So, and unfortunately, it was his last game.
And he got hurt in the fourth quarter. Man.
Yeah. But it's the one thing about football, you never know. So
you always got that one play away deal. That's always in the equation. One play away.
Right. You are one play away. But other news is talking about that cornerback. He went to Buffalo, and I told you what Josh Allen had said when they played Green Bay. But before he didn't even know he was getting traded. He was riding in his car singing with all his Packers stuff on. and then he gets the call, hey, you going to Buffalo. He's like, what?
And that's what players need to be alert on trade deadline time, because you never know what they're thinking.
That is true. But yeah, that's the thing. You didn't see the New England Patriots tried to find out about, obviously. The New York Jets tried to find out about Devontae Adams or Mike Evans, and their respective teams said that they weren't available. And then the Giants we got to talk New York Giants, unfortunately, but we got to talk about them.
That's one of your favorite subjects.
The Giants.
The G-Man.
Huh?
The G-Mans. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the G-Men have wow. That's all I can say.
They should have won the game.
I'm telling you. And I got a text message that said it was the coaching. Sometimes, yes, there is coaching. First of all, they traded Leonard Williams. We didn't talk about that to Seattle, but he was there for that game.
Right.
Williams. But Waller gets injured. He's out for a while.
Yeah.
Tyrod Taylor gets injured.
Yep.
He hurt him. They had to rush him to the hospital. And then they played a guy that Rick told me it was named Tommy DeVito.
Yeah, DeVito. Yeah.
And DeVito was trying to follow his uncle's path and going to the movies. And he was going to be the next spokesman for Jersey Mike after Danny DeVito. But
that's right. Dan DeVito. Yeah.
Yeah. But he only threw 3 passes in the game. And the producer told me they threw 11 passes the whole game. I was at the Cowboys game, so I fortunately didn't get to see.
You didn't have to say that. We know where you were. You ain't got to tell us where you were.
I was coming. I was going to the airport, and I was listening to it. I couldn't believe it. I mean, that was sad. Adoree Jackson makes the penalty on the long pass.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, was it Gnu misses, 2 or 3?
Yeah, field goals.
Oh, he would be. But he missed 2 or 3 field goals, and that was tough.
Yeah, man, it's really tough when you're a kicker in New York. I tell you, we went through that. We went through some kickers.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question. Do you think the Jets are going to make the playoffs?
No.
Yeah.
They because 2 teams going to come out of the AFC East, and it won't be 3 teams. I don't think they'll.
Buffalo and Miami, you think it'd be?
Yeah. It definitely going to be Buffalo and Miami. They both going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Do you think the AFC East is that tough of a division?
Well, it's very competitive. It's pretty tough. I think it's one of the, but the AFC is the strong side of the NFL. I mean that whole conference, AFC conference, is just tough.
But here's my question: is that the AFC North is probably tougher?
Yeah, right now. Yeah.
But here's the thing: you got 2 legitimate big time teams there, probably, but they're struggling. Buffalo and Miami. And my argument earlier today was Miami hasn't beaten a winning team.
They hadn't beaten a winning team, but they fun to watch, and they
are fun to watch.
They put up numbers, so if they can outscore you, they're gonna beat you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. So they're gonna score over 30 points a game. I think you might.
They didn't score when they went up to Buffalo.
I understand that, but that was a different case scenario. Buffalo just one of those places. For some reason, you got to have a good, complete game plan when you go to Buffalo.
Yeah,
that's everybody. I don't care who it is.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
But Buffalo right now, probably the hottest team I'm seeing is Cincinnati Bengals.
Yes, I agree.
So
and they play this week, so we'll talk about that a little later.
Yeah.
But they do, but there's some helter-skelter teams. New Orleans is helter-skelter.
Right.
The Texans, you would have never imagined them losing to Carolina, but there is our producer again, doesn't like Bryce Young, but he beat CJ Stroud first.
Yeah. The first, it was two different halves. First half, Houston looked good. Second half, Carolina came back and won the game.
Yeah. So that's the thing. You never know. I think Bryce Young is going to be okay when he gets talent. And they got they don't have a first-round draft pick. They traded it to Chicago.
Yeah, I think they did trade. Yeah, I think they did. They got the receiver from Chicago, I think. And but yeah, unless something changes during the season, they might have some good draft choices. But as right now, they went out a lot last year in the draft.
Yeah, they did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they won't have a first rounder, so you're right. Jacksonville, Pittsburgh. I picked Pittsburgh, I know, but Jacksonville went up there and they handled. They won 20-10, but that's another difficult place to play. And then being an AFC North team, they're going to be physical, and Jacksonville handled them.
Yeah, I like the Peterson. I like the coach.
Yeah,
I like the defense.
You played with him, didn't you?
Yeah, I played with the, and I like their defense. Their defense, they got some good players. And then the offense, man, the running back, what is that?
ETN.
ETN.
ETN, yeah.
Number one, yeah, they put him, he can catch the ball, he can
do some things.
Yeah, he's a game changer.
Yeah. How about were you expecting Philadelphia and Washington to be that close?
Yes, because Washington always played Philadelphia close, and then they beat them the first time this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how.
No, Philadelphia won. Remember, just like this. And then Philadelphia is. Do you think that AJ Brown right now is the MVP of the NFL?
Right now, he probably in the first 8 weeks, he would probably be the MVP because he has done something hadn't been done in the NFL.
Yeah, but over Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. I just think
John.
I just think the way he's been doing it, I think right now he's over 125 yards per game and things he have done. That's a record-breaking type of performance he's been having.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking so.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, they are the number one team in the NFL right now, 7-1.
Right.
So there are a lot of 6-2. And speaking of that, of teams, did you realize that the San Francisco 49ers haven't won a game since they beat Dallas?
They lost the last 3 games, I think.
They're on a bye this week.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we talked about that, John.
Yeah.
Sending Young, yeah. And they said not Sweat, but they said Young was doing his own thing.
Yeah, Chase Young, yeah. He wasn't running the defensive schemes.
Yeah. Yeah. And they might be preparing, honestly, John, to make a coaching change because you got a new management, new ownership, and they might want their own guy in. So
I think he's gonna be LeVar. He's gonna probably be his last year, in Washington.
I would agree. No Riverboat Ron.
No.
No Riverboat Ron. So, some other games. Cleveland at Seattle. I thought Cleveland had a chance to win that. PJ Walker is underrated.
Cleveland was ahead.
Yes.
20-17, I think. Yes. Then beating them 24-20. And but yeah, I mean, that's one of those games, man, that went down to the wire. It was one of the most exciting games of the weekend.
Yeah, it was. I watched it when I got back from the airport. But and also, Seattle's playing well. Seattle's got the top run defense and now trading for Leonard Williams.
Yeah. Williams went to Seattle. Yeah.
He went to Seattle, so they're even going to be better defensively. But do you know who Leonard Williams played for in college?
LA? USC?
USC, but no, he played for Pete Carroll.
That's right. Yeah, he recruited him. He probably recruited him. I know a lot about
him out of Florida.
Yeah. Pete Carroll knew a lot about him.
Yeah. But Seattle came out, and Seattle's going to be a tough out because they're going to run the ball and they're going to play good defense and force you. And they got really good receivers.
And you can bet on that.
Yeah, and they got really good receivers. So
that defense is tough. That defense can be tough up in Seattle.
Were you shocked that Kansas City lost to Denver?
I was shocked, but I wasn't shocked because of the way the weather is in Denver, and the atmosphere, the climate.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the Chiefs have had their number. The last many games.
They beat them 11 or 12 games.
Yeah, but that just goes to show you that you just can't take nothing for granted in the National Football League.
You really can't. That is true, John. That makes a good point. And they got to be. I don't know when they haven't played this year yet, have they?
No, I think they got 2 games to play.
They got 2 games to play. It's kind of like Dallas and Washington, but Washington, Dallas plays them at home on Thanksgiving, which I think is an advantage to Dallas.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Next week they play Seattle at home on a Thursday. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens.
And then they play the Giants, I think, after that. The Cowboys.
No, they played the Giants before.
Okay. Oh, before the Thanksgiving. That's right. Yeah. They played the 12th. November 12th.
Yeah, because we're going to that game. So.
Yeah, I'm going to go over there and wear my Giants stuff over there.
Yeah, you can. You'll be sitting in my seat. So if they beat you up, I can't help you. I'll be in another place.
I'm gonna sue the Cowboys. I'm gonna sue the Jerry Jones. The stadium. I'm gonna sue Jim Jeffcoat.
I just gave you you asked for the seats. I gave them to you.
Ain't nobody gonna touch me. They gonna say, "Oh, that's that beat up." Come on and mess with me. Hey, you want me to put? Hey, you know in the old days they used to fold your hat up, put it in your pocket.
Yeah.
You want me to fold my hat up, and put it in my pocket?
You wear what you want to wear. Oh man! Some of the other games that went on, Baltimore beat at Arizona, and they beat them 31-24. You know what? And to be honest with you, is Lamar Jackson is playing.
Yeah. Did you know Lamar Jackson is 17-1 against the NFC teams?
I know. I saw that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's pretty good. Because he must have been beaten by the AFC teams. You know, the games he lost.
Yeah. Jack over decade.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna put my my sticker on there and say I'm a friend of Jack.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Jack,
you gotta be careful.
Hey, I forgot Jack sent me a text this weekend. I was happy to get it.
Yeah, yesterday was your birthday, so yesterday was your birthday.
Yeah.
So, but also Cincinnati is starting to play. Yeah. And I don't understand what happened to San Francisco. You know, a lot of it, I think it's their defense. But they got Chase Young, they got Randy, they got Bosa's not playing as good as he's been, you know.
Yeah.
So that might be the issue, but their defense is.
Do you think maybe it's not the defensive line? I don't think. Maybe it's more like the
secondary.
I think had dropped off a little bit.
Yeah, after what Addison from Minnesota did to that secondary.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't played well.
Sometimes, you know, Jim, when you get exposed, then it open up a can of worms.
That's true. But here's the thing. Everybody was talking about it's the Super Bowl or whatever, the championship game with Dallas and San Francisco. And obviously we know what happened in that game. But after that, San Francisco must have said, because they have Sanders hasn't been playing, Debo, and
Christian McCaffrey.
McCaffrey played. Trent Williams did not play.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Trent is injured. Yeah.
Yeah. You know how you East Texas guys are. Not
I'm pretty sure he'll be back soon though. But one of the things I'm gonna say, I think it's so important to have whoever have home field advantage in the NFC Championship or NFC playoffs gonna be very important this year.
I agree with you 100%, and that's what the Cowboys have to do. Is get home field advantage because they don't want to go on the road to Seattle, San Francisco, or Philly.
No, that already been proven that Dallas gonna probably need home field advantage to get to the Super Bowl.
Yes, that's the only way they'll get it. In the first year that we went to the Super Bowl as a group, we were at home.
Yeah.
But let's talk about some of the games this week. Tennessee at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh had a tough one. Their quarterback is a little banged up.
Well, one of the things I did last week, I told you Derrick Henry gonna have over 100 yards. I told you that they were gonna beat the Falcons, and I told you it's time for Tennessee to turn the ship around.
Let's see what Derrick Henry had.
He had 102 yards, I think.
He had 101. Come on, man.
What's the difference between 101 and 102? He had over 100 yards.
He
I
did.
told you. And so,
but he won't have 100 yards this week. Not against Pittsburgh.
okay, I'm taking Tennessee.
I'm taking.
Why?
Why?
Because Tennessee quarterback guy gonna have an edge. Pickett is still probably hurt, so I'm going with Tennessee.
I am taking Tennessee.
Okay.
And the reason I am because Pittsburgh's quarterback is Pickett. Kenny Pickett is a little banged up.
He's banged up, exactly.
And that's tomorrow night.
Thursday night football.
Yeah. And then we got Miami at Kansas City and
Frankfurt, Germany.
Frankfurt, Germany.
You know, I scored a touchdown on that football field.
Yeah.
I'm the only player in the World League that scored in every game over there in the World League. But I'm taking Miami.
I'm taking Kansas City. I think they get right back on it. I'm not impressed. I'm impressed with Tyreek Hill, but I'm not impressed with Miami.
Well, the way I seen Kansas City play last week in Denver, they might lose 2 in a row. That's my take.
Not Denver. The weather's not going to be like it was in Denver.
Well, I'm taking. It's a mutual plays site, so I'm taking Kansas. I'm taking Miami because they got a little bit more firepower, and Tyree Hill gonna have 2 or 3 touchdowns.
I'm going with Kansas City.
John, you just a friend of Jim, I see. Yeah. Okay, you got Kansas City.
John got it. John got good sense.
He showed
Where's
up.
Rick at? Rick usually has his picks in there too. Rick's got KC too. You got 3 against.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I'm gonna look like a professional.
Oh, whatever. See, this is the way we should pick them. Now we got to do all this point spread junk. I don't like that. Minnesota at Atlanta. This is going to be a tough game. And I know Rick is a Minnesota fan, but Rick, I'm kind of a little nervous going to Atlanta. And they're going to start Taylor Heineke. I have to go with Atlanta on this.
I'm going with Minnesota. I think Minnesota is going to win 5 in a row.
B. John Robinson was sick a couple of games. I think he's healthy now.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with Atlanta in Atlanta. Where you going, Rick and John? I know you're there.
They better go. They better go with me, the Vikings. I know Rick going with the Vikings.
Vikings. John is going. I know John going with Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
See? Told you.
John don't know nothing.
You're right. I do. I do go with Atlanta. They always. But I'm going with Taylor Heineke. They got to win this one. I always go with them and always lose on them. Okay. The Los Angeles Rams at the Green Bay Packers.
Man, that is going to be one of those games.
Yeah, it is.
I just don't see Green Bay doing anything.
Well, you know, they just mentioned today that Jordan Love has to show something in the last 10 games to be the franchise quarterback. John is going with the Rams. This is a tough one, but I'm going to go with the Rams too.
I'm going Green Bay.
This is tough. You might get me here.
They don't might too. I'm going to tell you who's going to win.
Rick is going with the Rams too. So you got a little bit outnumbered here.
He said Rams suck. Oh, John. Oh, Love suck. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we got Washington at New England.
Washington, New England. I'm going with Jim. I'm going with Belichick.
Over Washington?
No, I'm going with Belichick.
So I said over. You going with New England over Washington?
Yeah.
And we talked about it earlier in the show.
I'm going with Bill Belichick. What team he coaching for?
He coaching for New England.
That's who I'm going with. Who you going with?
I'm gonna go with Washington.
Their best defensive player just left. Are you serious?
Their best defensive player, those 2 defensive tackles, they gave $90 million.
Okay, are you serious though?
Rick is going with the Pats for Keith, but I'm going with. I'm gonna have to look at it a little bit, but I'm gonna go with Washington.
They ain't gonna win. Washington finna clean house. They
might be tanking, John. You might have a point there. They might be tanking. I'm gonna go with New England. Y'all to talk me out of it. And I'm going with New England, but I don't feel good about it.
Go with the home team, okay?
I don't feel good about this.
Okay.
Chicago at New Orleans. There's no way in the world y'all gonna talk about this. I'm going with New Orleans.
New Orleans was the team I picked for the beginning.
Yeah, they got all excited about that one kid from Shepherd College.
Oh yeah,
but no, I'm going in New Orleans. Rick is going with New Orleans. Who you going with?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I already said New Orleans, my team.
Okay. How about John? I didn't get John's.
John gonna be on the bandwagon. Get on the bandwagon,
New Orleans. Everybody's New Orleans, so we all listen.
No.
Here is the game of the week. Seattle at Baltimore.
I'm going with Baltimore Ravens at home. There's no question.
This is a tough one, too.
To me, tough.
I'm going to go with Seattle.
Seattle just played their heart out to win the last game.
I'm going with Seattle.
All right.
Where you at, Rick and John?
Seattle.
Baltimore. Rick is going with the Ravens.
Seattle just barely beat the Browns. No, the Ravens ain't gonna beat the Ravens.
So we got 3 Ravens, 1 Seattle. I think Seattle will win this game. Tampa Bay at Houston. This is an interesting game.
I think Houston is a 3-point favorite.
I can tell you. Houston is a
3.5.
Yes, they're 3-point. No, the Houston's a 3-point favorite.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with Tampa Bay.
I'm going with Houston.
I'm gonna go with Tampa Bay. Rick and John.
I see why you lose, Jim. You don't listen. That's what I try to tell Jack.
Well, then Rick and John gonna lose too.
I said, Jack, he won't listen, Jack. And that's exactly right. I'm gonna
go with Tampa. I'm gonna go with Tampa.
Tampa ain't got no off. They ain't got no running back.
It's a pick 'em really, but I'm gonna go with Tampa. Indianapolis Colts against the Carolina Panthers.
Man, the coach they've been putting up some numbers, but they just seem like their defense just shut down at the end of the game. Man.
But I'm still gonna go with the.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers don't win 2 in a row. I'm going with the Panthers.
I'm gonna go with the Colts. John's going with the Colts, and I know Rick is going for the Colts.
Jack would nap in the midst. Hey, Rick, let me tell you something. When a 0-16 win their first game, they usually win another game because you know why? Everybody's sleeping on that team. Panthers.
I'm going with Colts.
Okay.
And Rick is going with the Colts. The New York Football Giants against the Las Vegas Raiders. Uh-oh.
I'm going with the Giants.
Have you lost your mind?
I just got to go with them.
The Giants are starting a guy.
They should have won last week.
Huh?
They should have won last week.
Yeah. The Raiders. I pick the Raiders and lose every week.
Pick them again so we can win.
I'm gonna pick them.
I do not want you on the bandwagon with me. Get on there. Get on the Raiders.
The Raiders.
Good. That's all I need to hear. And I'm gonna text you. I'm gonna text you during the game, huh?
Ooh, Rick says the Giants. He's with you. John picked the Raiders.
Rick must live in Amsterdam, New York.
I'm gonna have to go with the Raiders.
I know you go with the Raiders.
This is interesting. I'm gonna talk a little bit about this. Dallas versus Philadelphia. Dak Prescott is 8-3 versus the Eagles. The Cowboys are 10-3 in the last 10 games. In the last 13 games, they're 10-3.
So what are you saying?
What I'm saying is, here's the thing that Dallas has to do to win this game. First of all,
John, what you know about football?
John knows football. But and then, hey, don't mess with my guys, Rick and
John. Let me tell you something.
But I'm gonna tell you something.
You better go with the home team.
To be successful in this game, Philadelphia is a little banged up.
Doom David Rise, okay.
But here's the problem. If Dallas doesn't bring their defense, and what concerns me about Dallas right now is they don't have a very good running game.
You give all those crazy stats.
So I think that's going to give Dallas has to run the ball better. Pollard has to be a part of it.
Pollard, he cannot run. You can't get Pollard the ball 20 times. First of all, because he don't have Zeke there.
Rico Dow.
Zeke is not there no more.
But Philadelphia has two exceptional runners, Swift and Gainwell.
Yep.
That might be the difference in the game. They are going to cover A.J. Brown, but they're not going to cover Devontae Smith or Dallas Goedert. They're going to make it. But the same thing on Dallas's offense. Brandon Cook is going to have a very good game. And Michael Gallup, who couldn't practice today because he was sick, is there. And somebody's got to come up that we didn't anticipate. Ferguson, the tight end. But they're going to all have to – somebody's going to have to take CeeDee Lamb because they're going to take CeeDee Lamb out of the game.
They're going to try to take him out. Yeah,
and they're going to have to pick somebody. The big thing about Philly, they struggle a little bit on deep passes. So that'll be interesting to see how Dallas. But I'm going to go with Dallas, and I already got the score, 24-17, Dallas.
Are you serious right now?
Yes, I am.
Okay. First of all, Dallas don't play good on the road. San Francisco showed that. Okay.
One game.
When they went to San Francisco.
One game.
This is going to be the same thing.
But Dallas doesn't play well on the road.
Dallas going up to Philadelphia. Philadelphia will beat them.
They play good in division.
Philadelphia going to beat them.
Last team they play on the road, that was a game.
Philadelphia going to beat them 34-28. I'm Philadelphia 34, Dallas 28.
Okay.
What you say the score going to be, Jim?
24-17, Dallas.
Okay. I got it written. I wrote it down right here.
But like I said, they went up to New York, and what happened?
That's New York.
New York Giants.
That's New York. I'm telling you, Jim.
That has been very successful against Philadelphia. And A.J. Brown can't cover. But
he can't be covered. He can't be covered. They can't stop him.
No.
He going to have at least 10 catches.
They'll take care of him, but Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert in the running game is the issue.
Let me tell you the problem with Dallas defense.
What is the problem?
They don't went from man coverage to zone coverage. So that guess what's gonna happen? It's a lot of holes out there. AJ Brown might not have he probably have a slow start, but Smith gonna be catching that ball.
That's what I'm thinking. Smith is the problem.
And Dallas gonna be catching the tight end. They got to throw to the tight end a little bit, and they're gonna open it up. And guess what? Second half they're gonna.
But watch out for Deron Bland. They better not throw his way.
They're gonna send Dallas to the airport to get back on the plane.
Oh man. Zach Wilson beat the Eagles. John is right. He's right. He's right.
Well, you know, one thing about football, you will have a bad game. That was the bad game for the Eagles.
The bad game, at least the bad game for the Cowboys was against a winning team in the 49ers.
Well, let me tell you something. Whenever the Cowboys get on the plane, they have to travel over 2 hours on the flight. Oh, they lose.
No, because I've been to New York a lot, and we killed New York in New York. So don't even try that.
So I'm just telling you, I think the Eagles are going to beat the Cowboys.
24-17.
34-28.
Okay. We'll see. Buffalo at Cincinnati.
I'm taking Cincy.
I'm taking Cincy too. And that hurts me to say that because, you know, I'm part of the Bills Mafia.
Yeah.
But I got to go with
you'll sell out. Just say you're selling out on this game.
I'm not selling out. I'm not selling out.
Well, you don't stay with Josh Allen.
It's not Josh. First of all, Josh didn't practice today because of a shoulder injury. But it's not Josh Allen. I don't know if they can run the ball well enough. They got the same problem the Cowboys are. They're putting a lot of pressure on that quarterback in their defense. And that's the same problem the Cowboys have because they can't run it effectively.
Exactly, John. That's the best thing.
Bengals. I'm going with the Bengals.
That's the best thing you done said all night, John, because guess what? That calf injury is no longer. Cincinnati is ready to go.
Oh my goodness. So I'm gonna go with them.
Okay, now, you go with Cincy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now the Los Angeles Chargers against the New York Jets.
I'm on the Chargers bandwagon right now. I'm going with the Chargers.
They're coming across the country, and it's a Monday night game. So what do that mean, Jim? That's hard. You know how hard it is coming across the country.
So you're taking the Jets?
I am.
No, I say you're taking the Jets.
I am taking the. I'm taking the Chargers because I think they have a better running game, and they have at least a couple receivers that can make plays.
Yeah,
John's taking the Jets.
Justin Herbert gonna be good. He gonna have a game.
Justin Herbert is overrated.
He gonna have a super game.
What do you got, Rick? What do you got? Staley is a
bad coach, but I'm going with him this week.
Yeah, I got Chargers. I just think the Chargers are a little bit.
So John was taking the Jets.
Yeah. Really quick update. Texas Rangers are playing the Arizona Diamondbacks.
I got my Rangers hat on.
I see it. And it's 0-0. The Diamondbacks had a runner on third and in second with 2 outs. And Evalde just struck out the batter in the inning.
Yes.
So,
well, that was their chance to get at least one run in. They didn't do it.
Yeah, they didn't. And whoever's got the first run in has won.
Won the game. Exactly.
Yeah, so that's
what I don't like about the Rangers, they come home and they go to sleep for some reason.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
They better go out and win it tonight then.
But they did win one at home.
Yeah.
And now they got home field advantage.
Yeah, they won that first game at home, exactly.
Yeah. And Valde was pitching.
Yeah. Yeah.
Valde was pitching, and they did win at home and there.
Jets defense.
You're right about that, John. The Jets defense is tough. and they are tough. But I think Eckler is going to have a good game. Eckler's starting to get back to where he's been. I think Bryce Hall will have a good game.
Yeah.
Chargers, and Staley isn't a good coach. He isn't that great of a coach.
Yeah, I don't know. He must know something on the owner. They should have fired his butt.
Mm-hmm. So the big games this week are Philadelphia and Dallas, which you picked, Philadelphia. The other big games is the Giants, and there ain't no big game, Giants.
The Giants and the Raiders, baby.
That was a temporary pause for the World Series update. No one is watching.
They should have won that last game. Golly, we were finna go on a momentum run.
Yeah, you were.
You got to beat the Jets. You got to beat the Jets. Can't go in overtime. Dang.
I'm picking Dallas. I wish I could pick Buffalo, but I just think Cincinnati is getting hot at the right time. And
Cincinnati gonna be tough to beat.
Burrows is starting.
I'm gonna tell you the team's gonna be tough to beat. Cincinnati gonna be tough to beat. The Ravens gonna be tough to beat. The Eagles gonna be tough to beat. And the Dolphins gonna be tough to beat. Those teams,
the Eagles gonna go only lose one game.
I ain't saying they're gonna only lose one. I said they're gonna be tough to beat.
Yeah, but the Eagles are getting a little banged up.
Absolutely, but their defense has been able to sustain them.
You don't really believe that.
Their defense is good.
Their defense is getting banged up, and they gave up a lot of yards the last 2 weeks.
I understand that. But the Cowboys, guess what? Their offensive line is suspect. And guess what? They don't have no run game. Dallas don't have no run game.
And that scares me.
And let me tell you another thing. All you got to do is double coverage CeeDee Lamb. They forcing the ball into CD. They throwing at least 12 to 15 balls to CeeDee Lamb. And guess what? We're
going to move CD. We're going to move him in that slot.
Okay.
We're going to move him this week.
I'm just telling y'all what y'all need to do.
Let you do that.
They better listen to me. If they move him around, then they'll be better off. But if they try to force the ball in there.
He's not going to be stationary. Well, I don't think he is.
And I
he's
think
not going to be stationary.
Hey, Jim, they might need to throw the ball a little bit to Ferguson now, the tight end, just to help him out, because that's what
the Eagles are going to do. They're going to throw it to Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, and they're going to run Gainwell and Swift.
Yeah. Now, that's why the Eagles got a big plus on that running attack. The Eagles going to probably run that ball. All you got to do is run towards Michael Parsons, because there's going to be a hole created there.
You don't know where
only one team has Mahomes.
That's true, John. Only one team has Mahomes.
Well, Mahomes couldn't pull it out in Denver.
Yeah. You're going to have games like that no matter how good you. Cowboys game was the Arizona Cardinals.
You see, another thing people don't realize, when you go over to Frankfurt, Germany, when you fly over to London, or when you go to these different sites overseas, it's not the same concept.
That's true. Yeah, real quick, we got to get out of here, but Gotti Jr. asks, do you think I don't think he'll go back this year. If he goes back, it'll be next year.
Yeah, they'll probably have him back. He'll definitely be back somewhere.
He'll be like an advisor next year.
Send Fred Flintstone message with your suggestion.
All right. Hey, it's time for us to go. I can't believe Rick.
Hey, Rick, you doing? Hey, that's right. Keep him on the P's and Q's, Jim. All right.
All right, Rick. Hey, it's always fun to be around you guys. It's not fun to be around Byron, but you guys make the show.
We're gonna wallow in Frankfurt, Germany this weekend. Watch over the Kansas City.
He ain't wilding nowhere. All right. Hey, I'll see you guys.